Hey everyone, it's Cindy. I wanted to come to you with some clarification and some actual facts on the headlines that a lot of you have probably been hearing. I know not everybody pays attention to the news, but these headlines are everywhere about realtor commissions. I have a couple of listings coming up with repeat clients, and I know this question is going to come up. So I wanted to kind of get ahead of it, and I don't want to just sit over here and be quiet about it because I do tend to like to do a lot of video. So there's a lot of misinformation and inflammatory headlines out there. Here are a couple of them, talking about realtor commissions are being slashed, that sellers will no longer have to pay the standard rate of 5 or 6%. The New York Times has powerful realtor group agrees to slash commissions. Powerful Realtor Group is the NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors, which is where this settlement has come from. CNN says the 6% commission on buying or selling a home is gone. Even President Biden said that this settlement allows Americans to negotiate commissions for the first time. And the National Association of Realtors has rebutted him on that because commissions have been negotiable forever. So the facts are basically that commissions have always been negotiable. You've always had the right as a home seller to try to negotiate the commission with your realtor. Who you hire, what they charge, the cost, all of that is up for negotiation. Ask my dad. He is a great negotiator with realtors. So those fees and commissions, I'm not going to get into numbers on what the numbers are other than the ones that I mentioned in the headlines, but you've always had the option as a seller to say, well, this is what I want to pay. And then the realtor can turn around and say, well, that's not what I can accept. That's not what my company is looking for, or here's the services I can offer you at that rate. It has always been a negotiable aspect of it. So those kinds of headlines are wrong. There are two key points that have come about in this proposed settlement. The court still has to approve it, and none of the changes are going to take effect until July. And I imagine it's going to be a bit of a rocky road because there's going to be a lot of adjustment to make with the way that we do business, because the way that we have done business for many years has involved what's called an offer of cooperation. So if you've listed a home with me before, I've said to you, Mr. Seller, here's the commission that I'm charging, the company's charging. This covers, your photographs, your negotiation, your contract review, all of the things, prepping, staging the home, getting it ready. This covers all of that. And in addition, it covers an offer of cooperation to the buyer's agent. So in order to get more buyers into your property and incentivize them to want to make an offer and want to work with us, we're going to offer an offer of cooperation. That has been listed on the multiple listing services across the country. That is the one major change, and there's a second major change, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the one major change is that the cooperative compensation is no longer going to be listed on the multiple listing service. It still can be offered. Realtors have to talk about it. In some ways, I think that's a great thing because we're not going to be able to just text each other. We're going to actually have to have conversations with each other, and I'm going to have to call up the seller of 123 Main Street's agent and say, is your seller offering any compensation to me as a buyer's agent if I bring my buyer in to take a look at that house? So that's the first change. The second change is also, in my opinion, a pretty good change. If you are a buyer and you are working with a realtor, and that realtor is representing you completely, working for you, working in your best interest, you now are going to have a written agreement with that realtor. This has always been an option. However, it's been an option that a lot of us haven't used as real estate agents because we didn't want to pressure you buyers. We didn't want to have you sign something unnecessarily until you got to know us and were working with us in a home. So that is the second change, is that we're going to need to have these buyer agreements before you go out and look at homes. The buyer agreements are going to be able to outline what services and value you are getting and what the cost is going to be. The tricky part of this is a lot of buyers are going to have difficulty coming up with paying a buyer's agent. Previously, the buyer's agent was always compensated by the seller. That is the first major change in the settlement. So you're not necessarily going to get compensated by the seller. The seller may not offer enough compensation. So we're going to need to figure out different ways that you as a buyer can compensate me as your agent when I'm working with you on a home sale, if that makes sense. So this has been a long video, and there's a lot of questions, and there's a lot to think about with this whole thing. I think the important thing to know is that it's something that we can all talk about. There's going to be a lot of developments probably over the next couple of months into the next year. And not much has really actually changed, even though you're hearing all these incendiary headlines. It really hasn't changed a whole lot. I think there's going to be some sellers out there that are going to look to pay a lower rate and maybe not offer any compensation to buyers. Agents, they're not going to want to pay that fee, and they're going to say that, I mean, that's really the way that the whole lawsuit came into play. A lot of the sellers didn't want to be forced into having to pay the buyer's agent. I think they're going to realize if they're not going to offer any type of compensation on that, and there's no way for the buyer to figure out how to pay, that they're going to see a little bit less action and probably less money for their house. One other thing I did want to mention is that, you know, there's been a few headlines that say that this is going to solve the housing crisis, and that all of a sudden there's going to be more inventory and more value. You'll be able to get a home for less money. That is not going to happen. We are still not making enough homes for all of the people that want them. There is still going to be a shortage of inventory. We are still seeing multiple offers, many, you know, at houses that are priced right and presented properly. And there's still a lack of supply, and we can't change that with this little ruling. So if you have questions, please reach out to me directly. I'm happy to chat about it. I've been doing this for 20 years now. So there's been a lot of changes. The recession, I can talk to you a little bit more about how buyer agency came about. And like I said, if you have questions, reach out. I'm happy to chat with you about it. It's confusing for sure. Don't believe the hype. Talk to you later.